Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. A common thing that you hear about War Thunder is that it is full of toxic players and has, in general, an awful community. I've long disagreed with that statement in general, though have, of course, accepted that there are some trolls as well as just some, though very few, extremely negative and toxic people, if that's the word that you'd like to use. That said, that's what this video is all about, the community at large and how it functions as a whole in relation to not only War Thunder, but also to each other. I've personally communicated with people from all over the world over these past few years as a content creator and have seen the full spectrum of human behavior play out before my own eyes, and as such, I feel that I, along with many old timers in this game, as well as other content creators or even just some regular people who've been really paying attention, have a fairly decent handle on what the community is truly like. And now first in the video, and though I will not touch on this anymore, or really probably not much anymore if nothing else, the last few weeks have shown me many things, including great acts of generosity. These actions include people reaching out to me, people wanting to start a GoFundMe for me, people even offering me their old graphics card. I remember you, I saw your comment, I just didn't reply to your comment because I had so many things going on, but I hope you know that along with everyone else, I truly appreciate your generosity. Now, genuinely, the last 3 or 4 weeks have been life-changing for me, and to know that I had and still have the support of everyone, that means a ton, so thank you all. Also, I wanted to mention this earlier, but thank you to Scottish Koala for reaching out, and my apologies for not responding until just recently. I literally just got back on Discord maybe like a day or two ago, so I'm still going to be looking through my messages and seeing who to reply to and what, so I'm still kind of working on that. So I just want to say thank you so much, and especially for your shout out on your recent A10 video. If you haven't already subbed to Scottish Koala, check them out. Now, even excluding my own situation, other content creators that I follow, such as Ash or Oddbods, have been very open with their own lives and have had the full support of the community behind them. I have seen with Ash in particular how he posted some details about what had been going on with himself fairly recently, and the comments were full of only support and kindness, which is a far cry from the toxicity that I hear people discussing in regards to War Thunder's community. If you took everyone else's word for it, you'd probably believe that War Thunder's community is an awful place to be, but I just haven't had that experience. Now, I think that at least some of the supposed toxicity can be attributed to miscommunication or, in some rare instances, a misunderstanding of another person's culture. For example, if person A lives in the US or maybe even Canada, and person B lives in Romania, Botswana, Lesotho, it doesn't really matter, and they're both communicating in War Thunder or in the forums regarding War Thunder, one of those two people may make a comment that they thought was okay, was benign, whereas it is of great offense to the other person based on cultural norms in their society. War Thunder is a massive international game that attracts people from all over the world, and as such, will have many unintentional cultural clashes within it while players are otherwise just having a good time. Now, I know that this explanation is a bit of a stretch, but I'm sure that this sort of thing has happened and will happen even if in minor ways. Another possible explanation for this toxicity is that War Thunder also attracts such a wide audience of people, being that this is, of course, a free-to-play game of differing interests, skills, and competitiveness. I know that I, for example, am extremely competitive and will do my best to win all of the time, even if I occasionally look like a jerk. Heck, some people might take exception to the fact that I try to win and do well, as I've been called a tryhard before. My response is that if you're not trying to win or at least trying to improve, then why bother? Other people may find that trash talking or being rough on allies or enemy players is toxic, whereas I might find that personally to be a challenge. While I do not, for example, take part in revenge kills or other toxic behavior, I get incensed when another player takes me out more than once, especially if it's in a row, and so I take that as a challenge to do better. In much the same way, and this behavior goes back to when I was extremely competitive in Call of Duty Modern Warfare through Black Ops, of which I had a 2.14 kill death ratio for quite a while, I get into it with my own teammates on occasion, trying to spur them on to do better. Look at Tom Brady. He does this and he wins, and I'm not saying I'm Tom Brady, but of course he understands competition, and for me personally, I found that that is something that a lot of very competitive people do. They take it out on their teammates a little bit, and I'm not saying take it out by being abusive, because Tom Brady can be a little hard sometimes, but saying, hey guys, we need to pick it up. What are you doing? We need to capture the A point. No one's on the A point. Let's go for the A point. You guys know the deal. Now, sometimes it works and we win, and sometimes the result is still a loss. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm insulting anyone in War Thunder, because I don't do that. And of course, that's the wrong thing to do. But to try to goad your team into doing better is not wrong. Also, me personally, I don't use cheap tactics to win, such as spawn camping, which is among the most negative behaviors that one can practice in-game, and one of the most referred to behaviors when talking about toxic behavior again in War Thunder. In addition, and this is just to clarify some things, despite what some people might believe, spawn pushing is the result of a dominant game or being outflanked from capture points, and is essentially the inevitable result of a strong performance by one team and a weak performance by the other team. So just, if you ever think that somebody, an entire team that's surrounding your spawn point is spawn camping, you're wrong. They literally have nowhere else to go. They're just playing the game and your team sucked. Get over it. Also, my voice is a little bit rough today and has been for the past few weeks. I think it's because of allergies, but I'll let you guys know if anything comes of it. Now, genuine competition had at one point been the ideal in human society. I don't play this game for a participation trophy. I play it for the small serotonin boost that I receive from winning. Much more so if I do well. And you know what? People might think that that's weird, but at the end of the day, people compete so that they do well, so that they feel better about themselves. That's really about it. I get that not everyone gets their jollies from winning, but winners should not be put down for wanting to do well. The absolute worst, and in my opinion, the absolute worst and most toxic behavior, again in my mind, is that of the loser. The person that gives up after a single death, especially if they have more spawns available. The type of person that goes AFK when the going gets tough. I've had a ton of matches where it looked like a surefire loss, with some matches where we might have had between 200 and 500 tickets, something like that, and the enemy has like 3,000 plus, and we end up winning by like 100 tickets. I remember once years ago, probably just after tanks were introduced into War Thunder, I played a match where we all had 3 control points, where my team had 3 control points, and had like 8,000 plus tickets to their 500 or 600. We were whooping them. And then they made a desperate push right at the end, right when they had just a sliver of tickets left with all their tanks, and they attacked in a blitz. They overwhelmed us and they eventually ended up winning. If we just give up, you will never remember those matches because they won't happen. If you keep giving up and quitting, then you will eventually learn to dislike War Thunder, even if you continue to play it, as you will never win because you don't put in the effort to do so. Now, I understand that some people just are not good, and there are likely some people that will never be good, likely for reasons out of their control, but I am a firm believer that you should at least try. If everyone just at least took a bit of pride in their gameplay, or really anything that they want to put their mind to, then I can guarantee you that this community would be less toxic as a whole. Not that I think it's all that toxic, but there are some elements of it, of course. A competitive community is a healthy community. Never surrender. That sort of mentality bleeds through to your real life, and no one likes a quitter. Trust me, guys, over the last few weeks, I mean, yes, I'll admit it, I'll be the first to admit it, I've had a ton of support from everyone, but if I just quit and I just gave up, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because life sucks sometimes, guys. It doesn't matter if it's in a video game, it doesn't matter what. Don't bring out your negative emotions on other people, and don't put it into the game where it might sound silly, but trust me, guys, if you guys let loser mentality control how you are in one aspect of your life, it's gonna bleed over. Don't do it. Also, just as an aside, I kind of hate the word toxic. It's become too, I'll just use the term politically charged. I think that we need a new term, maybe one specific to War Thunder, but either way. That all said, I just kind of wanted to make this a more positive video about the community, which is honestly how this video started, but Sleepenstein took over and wrote the bits about healthy competition not being toxic. I took some allergy medication, which is, well, the allergies are messing up my voice right now, and I didn't realize it, but my allergy medication is not non-drowsy, so I was actually writing pretty much that entire part about competition while I was on allergy medication and I was drowsy. So if it sounded a little bit out of place, whatever, that's probably why, but I think that it still has a very valid point. I reread it after I was drowsy and it still seemed pretty valid, so there's that. Either way, again, back to my original topic. We as a community, in my opinion, are one of the better gaming communities out there, at least insofar as multiplayer games are concerned. I played Heroes of the Storm, where the community is extremely rude. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 back in the day with Xbox Live Chat, get out of here. People nowadays would not survive that. And even Clash Royale on the phone whenever I'm kind of out on the go, where half the player base will laugh at you even if they just barely beat you and they had a huge HP advantage at the start, and then you end up doing more damage to them than they did to you. But they just win literally because they probably put more money into the game than you did. That's just kind of how mobile games are. Now, these games have a much larger portion of their communities that are just truly awful and full of rude people. I mean, they'll curse at you, they'll drop racial epithets taps, just not good people. Whereas War Thunder, despite the occasional jerk, is full of, in my opinion, in my experience, history lovers, and the occasional dissenting opinion on forums, but nothing too horrible. Most of the time, poor behavior comes in the form of the spawn camper or the one death leaver, with the latter oftentimes, though not always, having another vehicle to use but they choose not to do so. But again, the vast majority of War Thunder players, especially those that are active in the community, are quality human beings, and I'm shocked whenever I hear anyone, especially prominent members of the community, trashing the player base in general. A poor player base has not been my experience at all, and while other people certainly have had a different experience than I have in War Thunder, I do not think that it would be all that big of a difference than my own experience. It's probably just how we perceive things. What I'm saying is that in all, especially over the last few weeks, I've seen very little in the way of poor behavior from the community, with evidence pointing strongly to the contrary. Not even just in the last few weeks, but in the entire time that I've been part of the community, at least as a somewhat active member. People may be rough around the edges, but that doesn't make them bad. It just makes them different. Now, while not a perfect player base, of course, it is certainly one of the better ones, and is one that, while active and definitely voices its opinion, is not toxic, or whatever word you want to use. We must never conflate dissenting opinions or competitiveness with toxicity, or whatever word that you'd like to use in place of toxicity. Trust me, guys, I've gotten tons of negative comments, especially on my history videos, where people will nitpick facts. They will say, oh, this, that, or the other thing, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's like, people will always be whatever way, but you know what? You take their opinions. Sometimes it's just literally, they're just trying to be nice or try to improve whatever work you're doing. You take it and then you use it to make yourself better. I've done this so many times from my history videos to my War Thunder videos. People have literally messaged me with advice. They have emailed me with advice. And other people might say, oh man, this person's being a jerk. You cannot always take a critique of yourself, or even if it's just a little bit rude, still a critique of yourself, and just say, man, this guy is complaining about me. This guy is saying that I'm bad, so he must be toxic. I'm in the right here. Guys, look, everyone has their opinion for a reason. Look at it from the other person's perspective every now and again. We have to do that because at this point, especially throughout the world, you have people who are unwilling to look at anything from the other point of view. We must always do that, because if we don't do that, then we're going to keep thinking that everyone that doesn't believe the same way that you believe or look at the world the same way that you look at it is a toxic individual, which is simply not the case. Statistically, that's not the case. And I'll just close it off by saying some people go too far, obviously, and that's wrong. But that is the exception and not the norm, especially in War Thunder. By and large, the War Thunder community is full of excellent people that just want War Thunder to succeed, whether it's the content creators or the regular players. We all have a role, and I think that we're all doing them quite well. So good on you guys, War Thunder community members. You're not bad people, and don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, whether it's another player or even a content creator, tell you any differently. You guys rock. Keep it up, guys.